Toxic people are not a modern invention. They walked the marble streets of Rome, whispered in the corridors of emperors, gossiped in crowded markets, and sat at family tables centuries ago, just as they do today. Human nature has not changed, only the costumes have. Where once the tongue spread venom in the forum, now it spreads through glowing screens. Where once manipulation was wrapped in the robes of courtiers, now it hides in suits, uniforms, and casual smiles. The truth remains, there are always those who seek to drain others, not by honest struggle, but by poison. What defines a toxic person is not merely that they are difficult, but that they corrode. They corrode peace with endless complaints, corrode trust with gossip, corrode confidence with subtle ridicule. They thrive on pulling others into their storm, dragging them down into cycles of drama, anger, or despair. And the greatest tragedy is that we often let them. We hand them our emotions like keys to a kingdom, and they enter freely, leaving chaos behind. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus, who spent his life teaching freedom of the mind, reminded his students that no one can harm you unless you grant them power over your will. Marcus Aurelius, seated as emperor over a restless empire, wrote in his private meditations that the best revenge is not to become like those who wronged you. Seneca, living in the poisonous court of Nero, urged his friend Lucilius to avoid companions who corrupted the soul. For them, toxic people were not an occasional nuisance, but a constant reality. And Stoicism was their shield. Yet here lies the paradox. You cannot rid the world of toxic people. You cannot silence every gossiper, reform every manipulator, calm every angry tongue. But you can build yourself in such a way that they lose interest in you, that their claws find no purchase, that their storms pass without drawing you in. And when you do this, something remarkable happens. They leave on their own. The world has not changed, but your posture has, and that posture makes their presence unnecessary, even unbearable to them. This is why the Stoics would never encourage open warfare with toxic people. They would not tell you to argue endlessly, to expose them publicly, or to sink into the same mud they throw at you. Such actions only feed their appetite. Instead, the Stoic method is subtle, small, deliberate choices in how you react, in what you refuse to give, in how you guard your mind. These choices are so disarming that toxic people eventually walk away, confused, frustrated, seeking easier prey. Think of it this way: the scorpion does not sting the stone, for the stone does not react. The flame does not burn the river, for the river offers no fuel. The parasite does not cling to the barren tree, for there is no nourishment. Toxic people survive only where there is reaction, validation, weakness to exploit. If you become unshakable, silent, disciplined, they cannot remain. They will leave, not because you fought them, but because you became unprofitable to their venom. This is the essence of Stoic self-defense. It does not require shouting, confrontation, or revenge. It requires mastery of yourself. It requires that you stop feeding the toxic with your energy. It requires that you learn to live so steadily that their chaos loses its grip. And the beauty is that these are not complex strategies. They are simple tricks, subtle gestures, small acts of discipline that change everything. They are simple, but not easy, for they demand courage to break old habits of reaction. Yet once practiced, they make toxic people drift from your life as naturally as shadows retreat from the rising sun. Imagine how different your existence could be if every insult no longer pierced, if every manipulator found no strings to pull, if every gossiper realized you were not interested in their poison. Imagine the weight that would fall from your shoulders if you no longer felt trapped in cycles of anger, explanation, and defense. This is not fantasy, it is the fruit of Stoic practice. And it begins with learning these quiet, powerful tactics, which are as old as philosophy itself. In this journey, we will uncover them step by step. Each is simple, yet each carries the force of centuries of wisdom. Together, they will not only protect you from toxic people, but also strengthen you into the kind of person who no longer depends on their approval, their noise, or even their absence. For the ultimate Stoic truth is this: freedom is never about changing others. It is about changing yourself so profoundly that others can no longer control you. And when you achieve this, the toxic will leave you, not because you expelled them, but because you outgrew them. The first trick, and perhaps the most disarming to toxic people, is silence in the face of provocation. Nothing unravels their power more quickly than the refusal to play their game. They thrive on reaction, anger, defensiveness, excuses, tears. These are the fuel that keeps their fire burning. Without them, the fire chokes and dies. And the Stoic knows this, which is why he guards his responses with the same care a soldier guards the gates of a fortress. Epictetus often warned his students, if someone provokes you, remember, it is your judgment of the insult that harms you, not the insult itself. To respond in anger is to declare that the other has succeeded, that his words have entered and stirred your soul. But to remain calm, to let the insult hang unanswered, is to reveal that your peace lies beyond his reach. The toxic person, expecting a duel, suddenly finds himself shadowboxing. There is no thrill in attacking the unshaken. Picture the common scenes of life: the colleague who sharpens every word into mockery, the family member who thrives on endless criticism, the acquaintance who needles you with sarcasm. They toss hooks into the water, waiting for you to bite. The moment you explain yourself, shout back, or brood in silence, they know they have caught you. But if you meet their barbs with composure, if you breathe, straighten your posture, and say nothing, you become untouchable. Their hooks sink into emptiness. This does not mean cold detachment in the shallow sense. It means strength. The Stoic is not indifferent because he feels nothing, but because he values something greater: his own reason, his own dignity, his own freedom. He knows that to hurl words back is to descend into the same pit, to wrestle in mud where both emerge soiled. By refusing to wrestle, he keeps himself clean. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, faced constant slander and still wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Toxic people quickly sense when their weapons are useless. Insults bounce off, manipulation finds no purchase, complaints echo unanswered. At first, they may intensify their efforts, testing whether your calm is real. But if you hold, if you refuse to feed them, they wither. The silence of your spirit is louder than their noise, for it announces that they have no power here. And nothing empties a toxic person faster than the realization that they cannot control you. The modern world resists this idea. We are told constantly, stand up for yourself, answer back, prove them wrong. Yet the Stoics saw through this illusion. To prove yourself to the toxic is still to play by their rules. To answer back is to show that their words matter. The true proof of strength is not in clever retorts, but in serene silence. It is in letting the storm pass, while you remain unmoved, as a mountain unmoved by the wind. There is a hidden beauty here. By refusing to react, you are not only protecting yourself, but also setting a standard. Others who watch see in you a discipline rare in this noisy age. They see that it is possible to live free of the tyranny of provocation. You become, without preaching, an example of another way to live. And perhaps, in time, even the toxic themselves will feel the emptiness of their games when faced with your calm. So practice this trick daily. When the small provocations come, and they will, ask yourself, does this deserve my peace? Does this insult change my virtue? If not, let it go. Each time you do, you strengthen the fortress of your mind. Each time, the toxic lose interest. And slowly, without confrontation, without warfare, they drift away, searching for someone else who will give them the reaction you refuse to surrender. If silence starves the toxic of reaction, indifference starves them of validation. This is the second trick, perhaps even more powerful than the first. For toxic people are not sustained only by conflict. Many thrive on applause, on attention, on the smallest signal that their behavior is noticed, admired, or tolerated. They spread poison not only through hostility, but also through the lure of charm, gossip, or false intimacy. And so, to remove validation is to close the theater in which they perform. Epictetus once said, "When you see someone seeking approval, know that he is enslaved." This applies to us, but it also reveals the secret weakness of the toxic. They crave an audience. Without one, their games lose meaning. What is the power of a manipulator if no one nods along? What is the strength of a gossiper if no one listens? What is the thrill of the arrogant if no one praises? Their poison spreads only where there are ears willing to absorb it. Think of how this unfolds in ordinary life. A coworker constantly ridicules others, expecting laughter as his reward. If you laugh, you validate. If you scowl, you still give attention. But if you remain neutral, refusing both laughter and outrage, his words fall flat. The performance dies without applause. Or consider the friend who thrives on drama, recounting every betrayal and injury to draw sympathy. If you rush to comfort endlessly, you become his fuel. But if you listen with calm boundaries, refusing to indulge the cycle, he will eventually seek another stage. This trick requires courage, for indifference can feel harsh. The world tells us we must respond, we must validate, we must play along. But the Stoic knows that to validate what is toxic is to participate in corruption. Seneca warned his friend Lucilius, "Associate with those who may improve you. Welcome those whom you can improve." The process is mutual. Men learn while they teach. What happens when we instead validate those who corrupt? We become weaker, not stronger. We are not obligated to feed poison. Withholding validation is not cruelty, it is a quiet form of justice. It says, "I will not reward what is unworthy." And often, this simple withdrawal is enough to make the toxic leave. They do not waste energy where no echo returns. They do not linger where their flattery finds no response, where their gossip dies unheard, where their manipulations fall against a wall of indifference. This is why Stoic calm is so dangerous to them. The man who does not crave approval is untouchable, but he is also unbearable to those who survive by feeding on it. To them, your indifference is not only confusing but insulting, for it denies them the stage they demand. And so, slowly, they walk away. You have not pushed them out, you have simply refused to open the door. Modern life amplifies this insight. Online, toxic voices spread because validation flows freely. Likes, shares, arguments, outrage. Each reaction feeds the cycle. But what if you withheld attention? What if you refused to validate, refused to engage, refused to provide the energy they need? The storm would pass, not because it ended, but because it found no soil in which to grow. The same is true in personal life. Where you do not validate, the toxic cannot thrive. Practice this second trick with discipline. Notice when you are about to nod, to laugh, to agree, to indulge. Ask, does this strengthen virtue or does it feed poison? If it is the latter, withdraw your validation. The silence will sting the toxic more than confrontation ever could. And slowly, without struggle, they will drift toward easier prey. The third trick for making toxic people leave you may be the hardest for gentle souls, but it is also the most liberating. You must establish clear, firm boundaries. Without boundaries, the toxic will always find their way into your time, your thoughts, and your peace. With them, you create a space where they cannot breathe. They suffocate in the air of discipline and eventually leave of their own accord. Toxic people thrive on blurred lines. They depend on those who are too polite to say no, too afraid to assert themselves, too eager to preserve surface-level harmony while sacrificing inner dignity. But the Stoics knew that harmony purchased at the expense of virtue is false harmony. It is slavery. And so, they counseled their students to live as men and women of clarity. The Stoic builds walls around his time, his attention, and his inner freedom. Not walls of arrogance or cruelty, but walls of principle. Marcus Aurelius, though emperor of Rome, lived surrounded by the most toxic environment imaginable. Courtiers hungry for influence, flatterers whispering in every corner, schemers eager to exploit weakness. Yet in his meditations he wrote to himself, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors, unless it affects the common good." This was not a simple note, it was a boundary. He would not surrender his mental space to idle gossip, no matter how much pressure surrounded him. He knew that his greatest duty was to guard his reason against corruption. Epictetus, too, spoke bluntly about boundaries. He warned his students that if they lingered among those who constantly mocked virtue, they would slowly become like them. If you spend time with a lame man, he said, you will learn to limp. His point was not to despise the weak, but to recognize the power of influence. To keep company with the toxic is to invite their habits into your soul. The first step in drawing boundaries is understanding that every association shapes you, for better or worse. But what does this look like in daily life? Let us bring this down from the marble halls of Rome to the kitchens, offices, and streets we know. Consider the relative who criticizes every decision you make, your career, your partner, your choices. Without boundaries, you tolerate it endlessly, drowning in their negativity. With boundaries, you calmly say, I will not continue this conversation if it turns to insults. Not shouted, not angry, simply steady. You have drawn a line. Or picture the colleague who thrives on gossip, eager to drag you into endless dissections of others' lives. Without boundaries, you nod, laugh, and listen. With boundaries, you say, I don't want to discuss people who aren't here. A single line, repeated firmly, closes the door. The gossip loses power because you denied it an audience. Or think of the friend who feeds on drama, calling constantly to vent, to cry, to blame. Without boundaries, you absorb their storms until you are soaked. With boundaries, you say, I can listen for a short time, but I won't take part in endless complaints. If you want solutions, I'll help. Now you have shifted the ground. If they truly want help, they will adapt. If they want only drama, they will leave. Boundaries can even be silent. Not every line needs words. Sometimes it is walking away when the conversation grows toxic. Sometimes it is leaving a message unanswered when it drips with manipulation. Sometimes it is choosing not to attend gatherings where the same cycles repeat. Silence is itself a boundary, and often the most powerful one, because it cannot be argued with. The toxic feed on loopholes. If you allow just this once, it becomes always. If you allow a small trespass, it grows into an invasion. If you allow one disrespect, it becomes habit. They will push as far as you let them. That is why boundaries must be consistent. The Stoic does not say no today and yes tomorrow. He says no whenever virtue demands it, regardless of who complains. And here lies the resistance. Toxic people despise boundaries because boundaries expose their weakness. They cannot operate in the open, only in the fog. A boundary is like a beam of light. It reveals manipulation, it clarifies intention, it declares ownership of the self. And so, at first, the toxic may accuse you. They may call you selfish, cruel, arrogant. They may try to shame you into compliance. But do not waver. For to waver is to confirm their suspicion that your boundaries are only words, not steel. Epictetus urged his students to remember, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Boundaries invite misunderstanding. People may not see your discipline as wisdom. They may call it pride or coldness. But the Stoic accepts this. Better to be misunderstood and free than understood and enslaved. Your task is not to convince the toxic that your boundaries are justified. Your task is to live by them. When you establish boundaries, you are not only defending yourself, you are also shaping the toxic person's choices. A manipulator, faced with consistent refusal, often leaves. A critic, faced with steady disengagement, finds another target. A gossiper, faced with disinterest, loses their audience. They leave, not because you expelled them, but because your firmness made staying unprofitable. They feed elsewhere, and you remain in peace. Metaphor helps here. Think of your mind as a citadel. If the gates are always open, the enemy walks in freely, plundering what they like. If the guards are weak, bribed with flattery, or intimidated by threats, the invaders enter with ease. But if the gates are strong, if the guards are disciplined, if the walls are watched day and night, the enemy does not even attempt the assault. They go where resistance is weaker. Boundaries are those gates, those guards, those walls. Without them, you are conquered before the battle begins. With them, you are sovereign. In our modern age, boundaries are more urgent than ever. Work seeps into evenings through endless notifications. Gossip spreads instantly through screens. Manipulators find 100 ways to reach us digitally. Without boundaries, we drown. The Stoic adapts by setting rules. No gossip consumed, no endless arguments online, no surrender of time to what is worthless. These are not small acts, they are walls against the flood. And once you build them, toxic people, online or in person, find no way to enter. Do not think boundaries require anger. A sharp tongue may cut, but it leaves wounds. Stoic boundaries are calm, steady, like a stone wall that does not shout but simply stands. When you say, "I will not allow this," you need no explanation. When you refuse to engage, you owe no defense. Your firmness is enough. Toxic people understand this language better than any speech. They know that resistance here is futile. Practice this daily. Each time you say no, when you mean it, you fortify your citadel. Each time you step away from corruption, you add a stone to the wall. Each time you refuse to let someone's poison cross into your spirit, you raise the gate. And soon, the toxic will leave, for they cannot survive where clarity reigns. The Stoic does not wait for others to change. He knows the world will always contain venom. His task is to ensure that venom does not enter him. Boundaries are the antidote. And once you live this way, you will discover something profound. Peace is not a gift others give you. Peace is a fortress you build. Now some exciting news. Our channel now offers a members club. By joining it, you'll unlock exclusive benefits, deeper content dives, and personal insights. Join us on this journey and let's build a meaningful life together. And I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write "better every day" so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. The fourth trick is subtle but devastating in its effect, deliberately choosing who receives your presence. Toxic people feed not only on words and reactions, but on access. They linger where they are welcomed, tolerated, endured. But the Stoic recognizes that his time and attention are the most precious currencies of life, and he spends them carefully. To withdraw your presence from the toxic is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is the recognition that companionship is not neutral. It shapes you, strengthens or corrodes you, elevates or drags you down. Epictetus spoke sharply on this matter. Avoid the company of those who make you worse. To linger among the vicious is to inhale their corruption like smoke. To stay among the wise is to breathe fresh air. Seneca warned Lucilius that friendships are not mere decoration, but serious alliances of the soul. Marcus Aurelius noted that the mind takes the color of its company, just as air is colored by the light that fills it. All three knew the same truth. Your presence is soil, and what grows in it depends on what seeds you allow near. The toxic know this too, though not with philosophy, but with instinct. They seek the tolerant, the endlessly patient, the forgiving to a fault. They thrive where people cannot say enough. That is why withdrawal is such a powerful trick. You need not argue. You need not curse. You simply reduce access. You are less available for their complaints, less present for their dramas, less receptive to their poison. Soon they grow restless, for you are no longer fertile ground. They move on to someone else. Consider the modern parallels. You may not always cut ties entirely, especially with family or co-workers, but you can choose how much presence you give. The gossip calls to drag you into endless talk. You answer less, keep conversations short, steer them back to substance. The manipulative friend texts late at night with drama. You no longer reply immediately, no longer indulge the hour-long exchanges. The critical relative invites you into another cycle of complaint. You visit less often, or you leave when the tone turns corrosive. These are not acts of cruelty, they are acts of stewardship. You are stewarding your soul. Absence speaks louder than confrontation. When you stop showing up, when you stop being available as their audience, the toxic notice. At first, they may press harder, testing whether your withdrawal is real. But if you hold steady, they begin to understand. You have not declared war, but you have closed the gates of your time. And time, once denied, cannot be forced. The Stoics would remind us that life is short. Do not waste the remainder of your life, Marcus wrote, in idle speculation about others. To give your hours to toxic company is to give away the one thing you can never reclaim. Better to spend them in solitude than in poison, for solitude sharpens the soul while toxicity corrodes it. And better still to spend them in the company of the virtuous, for their presence strengthens your resolve, refines your speech, and calls forth your best self. Choosing presence deliberately does not always mean dramatic exits. Often, it is gradual, quiet. You invest less in conversations that weaken you. You step away from gatherings that drain you. You say no to invitations that reek of cycles you no longer wish to repeat. Slowly, without noise, you vanish from the theater of their toxicity. And because you no longer play a role in their drama, the drama finds another stage. This is why Stoic presence is precious. When you do choose to be present, your presence carries weight. Others know you are there not from habit, not from fear, not from obligation, but from choice. And the toxic, sensing that they are not chosen, often cannot bear it. They thrive on being central, on controlling access. When you step away, you dethrone them. And the quiet dethronement is the most powerful kind, for it leaves them no one to fight. Only emptiness. In our world, this principle is more urgent than ever. The digital age allows endless presence, always reachable, always online, always responding, but the Stoic learns to limit presence here too. You do not need to reply to every message, engage with every outrage, join every debate. Each time you withhold your presence from toxicity, you reclaim your life. Each time you choose not to attend the drama, you strengthen the fortress of your peace. This is the essence of the fourth trick, absence as power. Not loud, not cruel, not dramatic, simply deliberate. By withdrawing your presence, you send a message without speaking. This soul does not belong to you. And the toxic, deprived of access, soon abandon the attempt. They leave, not because you pushed them, but because you quietly walked away. The fifth trick may seem almost too simple, yet it carries extraordinary power. Discipline your words and your reactions. Toxic people thrive on drama. They throw sparks, hoping you will ignite into flame. They exaggerate, hoping you will defend yourself in long speeches. They twist facts, hoping you will rage in protest. To them, your reaction is the prize. But when your words are sober, brief, and neutral, the stage goes dark. Their theater collapses, for there is no show to perform. The Stoics valued control of speech as one of the highest disciplines. Epictetus warned, "Be mostly silent or speak only what is necessary and in few words." Seneca counseled that words should not flow like an uncontrolled torrent, but should be measured, like coins weighed for value. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to let speech be simple, straight, unpretentious. Why such emphasis on speech? because the tongue is the doorway through which chaos often enters. The toxic know this. They prod, they provoke, they manipulate not to hear themselves, but to force your words into their script. Imagine a workplace scene. A toxic coworker spreads half-truths, waiting for your outrage. If you explode, the story becomes about your anger, not their lie. But if you respond calmly, factually, with no hint of drama, that is incorrect. Here are the details. The fire dies. Or imagine a family member who tries to draw you into endless debates. If you argue passionately, you are trapped in their cycle. But if you answer with calm brevity, I understand you feel that way, I see it differently, there is nothing to fight. They cannot duel against neutrality. This discipline of response extends beyond words to gestures, tone, and even silence. Toxic people feed on the rolling eyes, the sighs, the clenched fists. They study you for weakness, and every reaction is a thread they pull. The Stoic learns to master even these. He breathes slowly, maintains steady posture, lets his face reveal calm rather than turmoil. The more neutral the response, the more the toxic withers. They feel as though they are striking an iron wall. There is no echo, no vibration, no entry point. To live this way requires training. It is easy to let emotions flood the tongue, to spill words in defense or attack. But the Stoic rehearses restraint daily. Practice speaking less. Practice answering questions without embellishment. Practice pausing before responding, allowing reason to lead. Each exercise is a sharpening of the blade of speech. Soon, when the toxic attack, your words cut through with clarity rather than being tangled in noise. The modern world, obsessed with quick reactions, makes this discipline even more radical. Social media thrives on outrage. Platforms reward those who speak fastest and loudest. The toxic flourish here, drawing countless souls into arguments that devour hours. But the Stoic refuses. He does not need the last word. He does not need to prove himself in digital battles. He values peace more than victory in shouting contests. And so his responses are rare, sober, precise, or absent altogether. In this way, he denies the toxic their stage. There is also a deeper beauty in disciplined speech. It builds respect. While many fling words carelessly, the one who speaks with restraint carries weight. People begin to listen more closely because they know his words are not thrown cheaply. Even the toxic, though they may not admit it, sense this weight. They feel uncomfortable, even powerless, before someone whose words are unshaken, whose reactions are unmoved. They leave, for they cannot twist what refuses to bend. This trick, then, is not about clever comebacks or elaborate strategies. It is about brevity, sobriety, and neutrality. It is about stripping the toxic of what they crave most, spectacle. Without spectacle, their efforts are wasted. Without wasted energy, you remain free. And freedom, once tasted, makes the noise of their drama unbearable. Practice this deliberately. The next time provoked, do not explain yourself endlessly. Answer in a single clear sentence. The next time mocked, do not retaliate with equal venom. Let the silence stand, or reply with dignity. The next time dragged into gossip, refuse with calm words. That is not for me. Each time you do, you deny fuel to the toxic. Each time, you train yourself in the discipline of the tongue. And soon, your very presence will be enough to silence the noise around you. The sixth trick is not about words at all. It is about presence. To make toxic people leave, you must become a mirror so steady, so disciplined, so anchored in virtue that their chaos reflects back at them. When you live with composure, when you refuse to be bent, when your conduct shines with clarity, the toxic feel exposed. They see themselves in the contrast. Your calm against their fury, your steadiness against their instability, your dignity against their manipulation. And slowly, almost unconsciously, they drift away, for they cannot bear what they see in you. Epictetus was once mocked for his poverty and lameness. Instead of protesting, he simply continued teaching with composure. His serenity was a silent rebuke. It revealed the emptiness of the mockers. Seneca endured slander in the Roman Senate, but never lowered himself to mudslinging. His restraint made the accusers appear petty, while his silence carried authority. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by intrigue, wrote daily reminders to himself. If anyone can show me I am wrong, I will change. If not, I will continue on my path. He did not chase arguments. His virtue itself repelled them. Each of these men showed the same truth. When your life embodies virtue, the toxic retreat. Toxic people thrive in environments where everyone plays their games. They thrive where anger meets anger, where gossip meets gossip, where bitterness finds bitterness. But what happens when they meet a man who does not play? They are left stranded. Their gossip dies in silence. Their insults collapse against calm. Their manipulations scatter against clarity. And slowly, they feel not only powerless, but uncomfortable. Virtue is a light in which corruption cannot hide. Think of it as a feast. Toxic people bring rotten food and expect others to share. Most accept a little, pretending it is fine, and the feast continues. But if one man refuses to eat, if one man pushes away the plate and eats only what is clean, he makes the rot obvious. The others may grow defensive, but the truth is revealed. In the same way, when you live in virtue, you do not need to expose the toxic with words. Your example does it. They cannot sit comfortably beside you, for you reveal them to themselves. This is not pride, it is discipline. The Stoic does not live this way to show superiority, but to protect the integrity of his soul. He does not preach virtue, he embodies it. He does not shout against vice, he simply does not participate. And this quiet strength unsettles those who depend on weakness. Toxic people despise environments where their tricks do not work. They need cracks to slip into, vulnerabilities to exploit. When they find none, they leave. Consider a modern example. A group of co-workers thrives on tearing others down. You refuse to join, offering instead calm, constructive comments. At first, they may mock your seriousness, but soon your refusal to participate drains their energy. They feel exposed, and the gossip circle collapses without your presence. Or consider family gatherings where complaints fill the air. You refuse to complain, instead offering gratitude for what is good. Your positivity is not naive, it is deliberate. Soon, the complainers grow restless. They either change the subject or find someone else to hear their misery. Living as an example does more than repel the toxic. It attracts the virtuous. Others see your steadiness and are drawn to it. They find rest in your calm, strength in your silence, guidance in your discipline. In time, your life becomes a kind of filter. The toxic walk away because they cannot breathe in the air of virtue, while the wise walk closer because they thrive in it. You have not shouted, not fought, not even argued. You have simply lived as a Stoic, and your presence has done the work. This is why the sixth trick is so powerful. It requires no confrontation. It is entirely in your control. You need not wait for others to change. You need only change yourself. And the change is not cosmetic, but foundational. It means rising early to govern your thoughts, disciplining your tongue, restraining your desires, embracing reality, and remembering death. It means becoming so aligned with nature that your life radiates peace. And peace, when lived fully, repels toxicity like fire repels darkness. Practice this trick quietly. Do not announce it, do not flaunt it, simply become it. Lied so that your presence alone communicates, I cannot be corrupted. Soon, those who seek corruption will move on, and those who long for strength will stay. In this way, you transform not only yourself, but the world around you. The seventh and final trick may sound the simplest, yet it is often the most difficult for the heart to accept. You must be willing to walk away, to let go of toxic people without hatred, without longing, without the need for vengeance. To recognize that distance is not cruelty, but freedom, not defeat, but victory. For the Stoic, the true triumph is not in silencing the toxic, not in reforming them, but in liberating oneself from their grip entirely. Epictetus spoke with clarity on this. If a man seeks to harm you, remember, it is not he who harms you, but your opinion about him. And dismiss him. You can choose not to walk with him. This was not advice to flee in fear, but to step away in strength, to refuse to invest your soul where corruption festers. Seneca counseled Lucilius in the same way: seek companions who uplift, avoid those who degrade. Marcus Aurelius, emperor yet philosopher, reminded himself that he could endure even betrayal, so long as he remained just, and that justice included knowing when to turn away. Walking away does not always mean severing ties dramatically. Sometimes it is as gentle as reducing contact, as firm as refusing to enter old cycles, as clear as saying, "This no longer belongs in my life." It is not shouted, not flaunted, not turned into spectacle. It is simply lived, and in that simple act, the toxic loses their stage. For what can the manipulator do when the audience is gone? What can the critic accomplish when no one listens? What can the gossip achieve when no ears remain? The heart resists this because it clings. We tell ourselves stories. Perhaps they will change. Perhaps I can help. Perhaps I owe them my patience forever. But the Stoic asks, at what cost? If your virtue is corrupted, if your peace is consumed, if your days are wasted in battles with shadows, what remains of your life? To walk away is not abandonment, it is stewardship of your soul. It is choosing to live in truth rather than in poison. Consider how storms move across the earth. They roar, they flood, they destroy. But no storm lasts forever, and no wise man builds his house in its path. He steps aside, lets it pass, and continues his life. So too with toxic people. You do not need to conquer them. You need only step out of their reach. They will rage elsewhere, but you will walk in peace. This acceptance is not only protection, but transformation. It teaches you that freedom is never given, it is taken by choice. That dignity is never handed to you, it is upheld by your will. That peace is not begged from others, it is created by refusing what destroys it. And once you live this way, the toxic no longer frighten you. They are no longer chains, but shadows you no longer walk beside. The Stoics remind us that we cannot control who enters the world, but we can control who enters our lives. Each choice of company is a choice of destiny. To walk with the vicious is to risk corruption. To walk with the virtuous is to rise in strength. And if the path requires solitude for a time, so be it. Better to walk alone in clarity than to march with a crowd into ruin. The final truth is this: toxic people leave when they realize you cannot be bent, cannot be manipulated, cannot be consumed. And if they do not leave on their own, you must leave them behind. Not with hatred, but with serenity. Not with bitterness, but with gratitude for the lesson. For they have taught you what the Stoics already knew, that peace is fragile when placed in others' hands, but unbreakable when guarded by your own. So let this be the end of the cycle. Stop explaining, stop pleading, stop proving. Live with silence, deny validation, set boundaries. Choose your company, discipline your speech, embody virtue, and finally, walk away. Do this, and toxic people will vanish from your life like shadows at dawn. Not because you destroyed them, but because you rose beyond them. And in rising, you will discover what the Stoics called the greatest freedom: to live unshaken, untouched, and free. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.